Let's get into the news update for the time. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has reported 206 new cases of COVID-19, taking the country's total number of confirmed cases to 169,884. Lagos recorded the highest number of new cases with 132 new infections, followed by Akwa Ibom State with 56 new cases, while Ekiti State had 5 new cases. So far, 164,733 people have been discharged, while 2,128 people have died from COVID-19 complications. 6 states and the Federal Capital Territory have been placed on red alert by the Presidential Steering Committee for COVID-19. These include Lagos, Oyo State, Rivers, Kaduna, Kano, and Plateau State. A statement signed by the chairman of the committee, Boss Mustafa, said the measure was adopted following the confirmation of Delta variant of COVID-19 and the rising number of infections and the hospitalization across the country. The committee also warned all states of the federation to heighten preparedness and continue to enforce all protocols put in place, given the renowned greater ease of spread of the Delta variant. So let's talk about this a little bit. I have in the studio the Executive Director, Health Emergency Initiative, Pascal Achinine. Pascal, good morning.
Good morning.
And thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Now, the Delta variant of COVID-19 that is said to have been detected in Nigeria is causing some level of concern to authorities. But that is on one hand. When it comes to the people themselves who are supposed to adhere to protocols, are you seeing any change so far from that perspective?
Absolutely no. None. We are conducting ourselves as if everything is okay. Whether you see images and pictures and scenes at burials, festivities, programs, religious gatherings, it is as if nothing is happening. But we need to bring it to the doorsteps of the government, the doorsteps of the people. India has massive and sophisticated healthcare system, but this Delta variant unleash a lot of fatalities. As we speak, India has over 414,000 deaths associated with COVID-19, and most of them were traced to the Delta variant. Another important element is that it has not the vaccination. There have been persons who have been vaccinated fully, who also got reinfected again by this very variant. Again, these symptoms are most times not noticeable. It doesn't come with the usual symptoms the other variants have manifested. So it is more dangerous. And even the youths are also susceptible to this, now vulnerable to it. The implication, of course, we have a lot of youthful population here. So what the first and the most important thing is engagement with the public from leaders, those who are meant to take the bull by the horn, the government. There should be higher level of public enlightenment and sensitization. There should also, because of the trust issue again between the people and the government, and especially where people see that politically related gatherings they do not strictly follow this protocol. So there must be something that the body language of the government that suggests that it is more committed to conforming to the regulations, to the protocols, but also need to reach out to the people, and not just by the usual protocol of communication. You figure out those who people listen to and get them to bring this to the public domain, because we can't manage a situation where India in the last few weeks have been having an average infection rate of 30,000 plus. If we get to that stage, we don't have anything demonstrating we have capacity to manage it. And before I pause, it's important to mention that the number of people tested does not reflect. As we speak, we have not yet tested up to 2 million Nigerians from inception to date. That does not demonstrate efficiency. Do we have put in place measures for rapid tests? Because that's what we even highlight the emergency, the states of emergency we have in concerning this or not. Or we just, okay, few people stroll into, especially those who travel probably those are the ones that go for testing. How many people have been systems? What system have put in place to encourage people to go for testing?
All right, you talk about the issue of testing. The point there is, when we talk about the first wave, second wave, and right now there is the talk about the likely third wave coming up on board. But we still haven't tested enough all the while. But you recall that the last 1, 2, maybe 3 months, the numbers, the daily infection numbers that were sent out by the NCDC seem to be lower, excuse me, seem to be lower than what we saw in the last 2 days, where we saw the numbers going above 100 and so on. What does this tell differently? Because the point there is people relaxed a little bit. In fact, there were some days we got about 2 or 3 infections per day from the results that were given. How do we measure that when it comes to the infection rates?
The very reports you displayed on the screen showed 206 as of yesterday. So let's even do an average in the last 1 week that probably will have about 100 plus or so. And that is only to the extent that a very tiny representation of the population went for testing. So we are not, if we place reliance on that, there must be certain assumptions that lends credence to it. So the assumption is, how easy is it for people to go and access free testing? How many locations have because the NCDC is rather the Presidential Task Force said they have put in place, put some states on red alert. So what is a reflection of red alert? Do we have access? Do the residents of those states have access to free testing centers? Do we have machinery for rapid tests? Are people being encouraged and reminded that this thing is back and it's better to stay on the path of caution by going for tests? But if this measure we have is only some private labs or a few public locations, and the private labs are not free, and a few people who can afford it. In fact, in one of the write-ups I read, it says that the cost of a test is the double of, is twice the minimum wage of people. So if we don't have affordable access to testing, and we have not actually mobilized the public that we have an emergency, and the non-pharmaceutical protocols, we are not emphasizing it, we are not practicing it. God forbid, we had the mercy of God last year, so the predictions around us did not work. But it does not mean that we will throw caution to the wind and go back to our normal lives.
All right. Some analysts, in fact, government officials are talking about the issue of enforcement, which sends a signal of something a little firmer than just persuasion to say, okay, everybody stay at home. The regular lines of wear your face mask and use hand sanitizers or wash your hands, physical distancing and all of that. If we have to take that measure, what dimension would it take really? Because if we're talking about enforcement, how do you enforce without, taking some drastic measures?
I think the key part of what the government or stakeholders need to do is designing and implementing confidence-building measures. There are specific things government will do that will make the people believe more in what they say. People are being buffeted by so many things. Many are borrowing to put food on the table. The high costs of foodstuff, the loss of, many are losing employment left, right, and center, and so many things are not working. So people have got to a stage that, after all, if something will kill someone, but one is the government must design programs that communicates to people in truth and in word that they mean well for the people. 2, you reach out to stakeholders whose voices the people believe and trust to collaborate with you. Because if you use enforcement only by using the instrument of force, it is not going to completely work perfectly. It's not the only solution, and it may not go far. You may get temporary measures of, mileage, but it will not take us very far. Secondly, there are people who are, because there must be a mixture of carrot and stick. So if, as much as you demonstrate that you mean well for the people, either by programs you churn out, by reliefs or palliatives as it were, and also things that typically hurt people, you make sure that those things, you dismantle them. Then you also, when you're enforcing, there are persons who are deliberately, intentionally violating this. I think in one of my appearances on this platform, I mentioned that, if this person is saying that COVID does not exist, and he or she deliberately goes against the regulations, get the person to go to one of the isolation centers to leave the cylinders. That's instead of taking them to the prison or so. By the time 1, 2 persons, and you now take that person also to go to a mass where there's a mass gathering of people, following the protocols. The person will say, yes, COVID is real. By the time you've done a couple of them, and of course the media has a major role to play. In the past, we have conducted some documentaries that captured scenes at the hospitals, the experiences of people. And some persons, I think about 2 weeks ago while I was there, I mentioned that I know of a friend who lives in Lekki. His younger brother died of COVID in December. He went for the funeral. While he went for the funeral, he got infected. He died in February, and he's a very wealthy person. So we can also cite some of this so that deterrence also make people to say, these are things I need to do to stay safe. This thing may by God's grace, will blow over this year or sometime not far from now, but let's be alive. Let's make every effort to stay alive.
Yeah, but when we are seeing variants, because everyone had thought that, the phase of COVID-19 was fading out or was waning a little bit, and then we have a new variant. How sure are we that there won't be another variant again and other variants? Because the metamorphosis seems to be, it seems to be mutating into something else.
COVID has clearly showed the limitation of science. Whether you have seen that in the U.S., close to 600,000 people have died. That's about twice the population of Iceland as a nation. So what it means is that whatever pharmaceutical solutions that have been put in place, whatever measures taken in the context of vaccination to address this, they are temporary and transitional measures. There's no drug that currently ensures COVID is completely treated. Like you go to a pharmacy, you buy a drug for malaria and take it for 3 days and it disappears. So most of them are managed by, and the process is ongoing. So what I am saying is that this may not be the last variant. Nobody expected that there will be a Delta as of December. But a virus mutates. And because it does not, nobody has a, so what must happen is until we achieve herd immunity, until we ensure that every part of the globe gets access to the vaccine, until we have put in place those practices and behaviors that will limit the capacity of transmission, we may still have mutations of different kinds. And of course, it's also, people have been encouraged to take more of the vaccine. Let's treat the vaccine as if it's medical. The vaccine, we take vaccine for polio. So this is also vaccine for COVID-19. So that if you go to the US, for instance, and I want to quickly emphasize on this. If you go to the US, most of the states where there has been less vaccination, that's where you're seeing another resurgence. So the vaccination, of course, Nigeria does not have enough or access to the vaccine. So the non-pharmaceutical protocols and practices must be reinforced until this blows over. Nobody knows whether this will be the last mutation or there will be more. But we must take measures to limit the spread.
And everyone has to take precaution for his own sake and for his and her family's sake as well. And
the health workers, I don't know, also a lot of measures must be taken. So our organization, Health Emergency Initiative, we are working with a partner to deploy at least 9,000 plus, about 9,500 coverall and other PPE for health workers, so that they have capacity to manage this more effectively.
All right. Thank you very much, Pascal Achinime, for what you do and what you're doing and what you have been doing. We really appreciate you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Let's move to our next discussion now. The arrest of Sunday Adeyemo, also known as Sunday Igboho, has continued to generate reactions, including some Yoruba leaders and monarchs who are now rallying support for the Yoruba rights activist who was arrested in Benin Republic. Lawyers have been mobilized to stop Mr. Igboho's extradition to Nigeria. So that's what we'll be talking about next. Joining me now is the convener coalition of Odua Self-Determination Group, Razak Olokoba. Razak, good morning.
Mike, good morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Exactly, Baita Is the ram parked outside?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Oh, really? That's nice. All right, let's talk about this development. I know you've been following the development of Sunday Igboho when the news broke that he was arrested in Benin Republic. In fact, between yesterday or in the last 24 hours, there has been, news of his release, news of his escape, news of his rearrest, news of his extradition. It's been back and forth as the case may be. Of course, we know some of them may be fake news amidst whatever is real. But what do you make of this development?
Well, first and foremost, Nigerian government has a lot in its hand. It is important that the government begin to put all those things behind in terms of security. If you look around us as a nation, you will see that there are also crises with all our neighbors. Chad has its own insecurity. Nigeria has. And other regions in Africa, particularly North Africa, we have in Libya, we have in Egypt, we have in Morocco, Ethiopia. So in the East too, in East Africa too, Kenya is there, Congo is there. And half of those citizens of those countries seek sanctuary in Nigeria when they know that they can't take it again. The angle we are not looking at is the kind of insecurity and challenges we have in Nigeria. It's not a one-phase crisis, and it is not defined at all. Today it is terrorism, tomorrow it is banditry, the next is kidnapping. Then simultaneously, you have people who are agitating that they want to be excused from Nigeria.
So it makes a very complex situation.
So it makes a complex situation. And you know very well that international law cannot compel any country to accommodate a country in crisis that will come and dislodge them. There's no country in Africa that can accommodate Nigeria if there's a crisis. We are 70 in the world. And I don't think there's any country in the world that's also willing to accommodate Nigerian crisis if there's a humanitarian crisis. And that's what we must begin to look at. First, for us as a group, we know that there's a need for us to begin to repackage our demand in such a way that the government will understand what we're actually talking about, so that the president and his people will also be able to understand that our demand is not because we are Buhari. Our demand is not because all the problem we are talking about in Nigeria today were inherited by Buhari. Insurgents or all our demands by insurgents. So, but it escalated. So, for the people in power, they must quickly look at these challenges and know the implication of what we have at hand and begin to do the appropriate thing. For instance, the political process is not an error-free process. Of course, government can make mistake, but we must address it. The Kano saga is still there. There's a back and forth. Individuals are saying that the procedure is wrong. Then the Sunday Igboho came on board. All these procedural errors must be corrected, with a view to also correcting other challenges. There is no ethnic group in the country today that does not have one anger against the government and the other, and that's my fear. In Chad, it is clear. The crisis there is in Chad is clear. In Sudan, it's an ethnic issue, question of identity. They broke up and they became two. In Libya, it's insurgent. Their country is in crisis. So they define it and they're approaching it. How will you define Nigeria's crisis? How will you define it? Do you say it's a terrorism? Do you say it's this or that? And that's what makes it different. And that's where the approach to solving this lies solely in the hand of the government and the people. For us who are agitating, I agree that there's a need for us to also speak in such a manner that the government will get our point. Someone wants to be excused from Nigeria, do it peacefully. If you want to stay in Nigeria with a restructured Nigeria, do it in such a way that the government will understand. And the government will also demonstrate willingness that I want to understand you. I'm a pro-Buhari person. There's a moral responsibility on people like us to talk to governments in such a way that the demands will be understood. That these demands, I can't criticize this government in such a way that they are going to run into crisis or perspective that what do people want? We must run in such a way that they must understand. And the first and foremost thing is that having understood the implication that we find ourselves, that there's no political pattern in Nigeria today for us to address this situation. Which one will you take first? You have to do simultaneously. Everything is important. And if you learn from history, we are passing through an historical process. Countries of the world have passed through crises before, where you don't have a defined solution to what is on ground. As Sunday Igboho is being arrested today, if you read the news again, some people are being kidnapped somewhere again. So you have a challenge of a government who need to mobilize its own people against insecurity in the nation. There must be an uprising by the people. So having said that, I will strongly propose that the Sunday Igboho saga must be handled carefully.
All right.
It must not go in the pattern of Kano, where there's always this crisis. So I think if
when you say he shouldn't go the way of Kano, now that we hear the report of him being arrested, are you saying he should not be extradited to Nigeria?
No. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that if arrest should be made at all, it should be done in such a way that the entire world will give a kudos to what has been the way it has been.
But at least so far, we haven't heard
lawyers Kano
of a violation of his rights.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That procedural errors of Kanos that people complain about Kanos should not be allowed to happen in this case again. And for Kano, there's a demand for justice. If what the lawyer said were true, that in Kenya our citizens were treated in a particular manner, there should be redress. Then in Nigeria too, there are universal standards of how political prisoners have been treated, and the government should follow suit. And you should remember that Biafra issue is a major crisis for a country, if it is just the one that you are combating as a nation. The demand by Sunday Igboho and people who want to be excluded out of Nigeria in the Yoruba, it's also a major crisis. If you now marry everything together with other crises we have in other regions, it's a major crisis for us. And that's why I strongly advise the president, and he should remember that he's not the author of this problem. He only escalated. I strongly advise him that he should change his pattern. And the pattern should be that I am your president, and I want this country to stand as one. So that any step you take will not be misconstrued to mean that this is a full animal trying to suppress other ethnic group. It should be done. It should be done with that reflection.
Yeah.
Because remember that we are the seventh in the world. I also remember that all the surrounding countries in Africa has cared about us. They don't want a crisis in Nigeria where we go and eat the food they are supposed to eat for 1 year as a lunch. They don't want that. What they want is peace. So we must also want peace.
Yeah. On the other hand, Razak, do you feel that, or do you think that what is going on seems to be deliberately misunderstood by some persons who feel that, okay, let us make it a North versus South issue, or let us make it a House of Fulani versus a Yoruba issue.
That's why I said, so you heard what I said, that I am a pro-Buhari person. Some security will profile us to mean that they are plotting us against Buhari. That's why I said that why will anybody ever think that somebody do everything to ensure that Mr. President has won the election? We don't turn around to say that a Fulani man should not succeed. And that's what should be going in the end of our president at all time, that what could be wrong. And that's why all the people that surround Mr. President, you should begin also to do a background check on them. That
but away from the president. But away from the president, leaders and enlightened people, Nigerians who have a full understanding of the situation.
It starts with the president, Mike.
Yeah, the president is doing what he has to do.
Yeah.
But the point there is the interpretation. Sometimes we too interpret whatever we want to interpret because we want a thing in a certain way.
That's why I said it has a lot to do with the president, particularly a Nigerian president who has massive power to do and undo. And to get himself out of it, that's why I'm saying that he should isolate himself from this North and South crisis. He should isolate himself from this Yoruba Hausa crisis and profile demand on his own, that this demand for a restructured Nigeria The insurgents who are saying that, Boko Haram, we don't want this. Are this demand legitimate? Is it really possible to have an Indian situation where you have 4 languages in the parliament if they don't want English to speak in their own region? Is that a legitimate demand? The Igbo issue too, is it because you see the feature that is a speaker of an Igbo man? Is that what is causing this agitation? Okay, if that is it, let's sincerely discuss with each other. And that's why I said it starts with the president. What the president has done about insecurity in the last 2 months is impressive.
Yeah.
Is mobilizing the entire nation by going from one region to the other. I see my president live coming to Lagos when someone was handing over the equipment to the IG. I saw him live. You should do more of that. When you do more of that, it is more uniting than when we don't see the president. And on this matter too, he should also demonstrate what he has demonstrated in that angle too. We have suggested that it's time for president to galvanize the entire nation against insecurity. When your president goes to a community and tell you that by statistics, your population in this community is 2 million. The insurgents, because they are organized, they come in 50s. You must be able to stop insurgents, even when it's going to be a fork, even when it's going to be a knife or a broom. When you see a president talking in that way, you are galvanized. A president is moving his own people. So in this, on this one too, the president must also be seen to be trying to bring us together. That if an elder trying to pamper the younger ones, what he does is to try to understand this problem. Do you really want to insult me, or do you really want to demand a few things from me? So you should understand from that part. And from what I have seen, there are 2 angles to it. There are people who are plotting the north against the south. There are people who are working on that. And there are people who have genuine agitation. For people who have motives, they will always hide under us. They will always hide under the Igbohos or the Kanos to make it look as if it's anti-north or south. I've been talking about a restructuring Nigeria for decades. So why will it be now that it is my Buhari is my problem?
Okay. All right. Razak Olokoba, we thank you very much for your insight into this, and we certainly be monitoring to see how things play out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pleasure being with you.
Thank you.